Hello, my name is Jennifer Engel. I am the author of Heaven Under Construction, which is a book of poetry that I wrote first back in 2014 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer the first time, and I published it in 2017. For the month of September, but then specifically moving into October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, what I decided to do is kind of like resurrect the book a little bit because my cancer has recurred a third time, and I'm kind of like comparing and contrasting how am I dealing with cancer the first time versus how am I dealing with it the third time that it has actually recurred. And last week, toward the end of the book, I actually have some poems that I wrote. It's called Under Construction because all of the roads that I took to work were under construction. And I kind of used the signs that you see in construction to kind of create little mnemonic devices for myself to help get myself through cancer the first time, toward the end, after I had been through 21 rounds of chemotherapy, a double mastectomy, and 30 days of radiation. You know, what they don't tell you is cancer isn't just physical. It also affects you mentally and emotionally. So how do you recover not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well? And last week we talked about stopping, standing still, taking inventory, observing your surroundings, and planning a route. And I kind of talked about how you can't just take the pill. You can't just do the chemotherapy. That you also need to make other major lifestyle changes, whether that's diet, exercise, meditation, going to counseling. You have to attack it. Well, again, if you've heard any of my other videos, I hate the word attack. You have to work with it physically, but you also have to work with it mentally. So one of the things that I'm going to talk about, and I'll put the link below if you're in Illinois, there's a place called Live Well. If you haven't actually accessed that, and then if you don't live in Illinois, maybe you can Google or see if there's a place like Live Well somewhere in your area. What's awesome about Live Well is it's a free service for anyone who's going through cancer, but it's also a service for your family, and I did use it in 2014. They deal with food and nutrition classes. They deal free counseling. They have things like Reiki healing. They use like a lot of different things to help you, not just for the cancer. So I'll put that down below as well, the link to Live Well. You need to access resources like that, not just your doctors, okay? So that's kind of what I talked about last week with stop, that cancer isn't just this physical thing that we can take the pill or do the chemotherapy or the radiation, that we need to go deeper. We need to say, you know, what caused dis-ease within our soul? What can I do physically in addition to, you know, maybe the chemotherapy or the pill or the radiation or the operation? Do I need some counseling? Do I need some spiritual healing or something like that? So that's kind of what I asked people to think about last week, to stop, take inventory, not just physically how you're doing and with your doctors, but also mentally and emotionally. This week, the poem is on page 366 of my book. It's called Slow. In my eyes, anything worth doing and doing well is worth doing slowly, carefully, and methodically. First, I must start small. Observe how much time I currently care for myself and then increase it from there. Second, I must look long term. How will these small changes have a large impact over time on myself and others? Third, I must weigh the priorities. Many things compete for my attention. I must know my top 3 to 5 priorities so I can stay focused. Last, I must whittle down my list. I know I like to think I can multitask, but I can't. All roads under too much construction can't even be driven upon. So there is this phrase that my boss likes to use, slow to go fast. And when I talked about stopping and kind of taking those inventories of yourself to kind of come up with a plan, what we're looking at this week is we're looking at going slow, and we're looking at really finding what I found for going slow and for stopping is to pick, first of all, what are your priorities in your life? Okay, so I kind of said last week I have like a little sticky note on my computer. Actually, I didn't say this last week. I said it in what is heaven under construction, or what is highest possibility states, actually, and I was just looking at that video. But what I might do is show it here too. The first thing that I did to stop is I asked, what are my 3 to 5 top priorities in my life? And it has to be your health: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, vibrational. If you don't have that health, you're not going to be able to help anyone around you. Okay, so I do think that that should be one of your priorities. But then in addition to that, what are your other priorities? Is it family? Is it friends? Is it your job? Is it helping others? So really think about what are your top 3 to 5 things that are super, super important to you, and really narrow it down to 3 to 5. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go slow. You're going to build habits that support what is important to you. Okay? So what I do, and some of the habits don't even necessarily need to be related per se to what your top 3 to 5 things are. They could just be habits that get you out of bed in the morning. So for example, my habits every morning: number 1, get out of bed. Number 2, I do take my medicine, and that supports my physical health. Number 3, I go make coffee, and I make the cat food, and I scoop the cat litter box, because another thing that's important to me, or what I see, is if I have a clean, organized home, then my mental state can be a little bit more clean and organized. So it's kind of like, as I'm doing that, it's also a meditation for me to not just clean and organize my home, but also maybe my thoughts. And then that's my other habit, is to sit down in my chair with my coffee and my cat and really kind of shift through, what are my thoughts for the morning? How do I want my day to go? Maybe creating like a little post-it note of the things that I want to do and how I want my day to go. The post-it note and how I want my day to go is the thing that supports not just my physical being, but also my mental and my emotional being. And then another thing that I do a lot is, just before I go to sleep at night, I close my eyes and I create like this playlist. How did my day go? What did go well? What am I thankful for? What didn't go well? And how could I do that differently next time? Because I'll be honest, yes, I want to be a cheerleader. I don't want cancer to be so scary. I don't want things to be so complex. On the other hand, my channel, my teachings is raw and real. Most of the time I'm happy and I'm upbeat and everything. But for example, yesterday was a really, really rough day for me. I've been taking Ibrance, and this is so for 3 weeks I took Ibrance, and I did notice some side effects, but not necessarily anything that I felt was truly bad at the time. What I'm noticing is when you actually go off the medication, that's when like a lot of the side effects almost seem to pop up, because your body is trying to recover from the side effects or from the effects of the medication. So all of a sudden, coming off of Ibrance, I started to get a mouth sore. And then also I'm actually cognizant enough to tell people when my chemicals are off. And when the chemicals in my mind are off, which is something that could happen if you're going through chemotherapy or if you're taking a medication, right? It can mess with the chemicals in your brain. And when I am in that state, no amount of meditation or anything like that is going to get me back to a normal state of being. And that's happened to me several times throughout my life. So what I learned is you really want to put those positive habits in place when you are in that good up state. You want to ingrain those habits, because what happens is your brain actually spirals backwards. This is called your prefrontal cortex, and your prefrontal cortex is responsible for logical thinking, okay? But then what happens when your chemicals off, they might shift more to your amygdala, your animal brain, that fight or flight place in your brain. And if you don't have the strategies ingrained enough in your brain to spiral all the way back into your animal brain, then you might not know what to do when you are in a situation when maybe the chemicals are affecting you, right? You might experience extreme anger, extreme sadness, extreme depression. You might say, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, that's how big and bad and scary those chemicals can be. But what I really like is there's been some social media like Harry Potter or the movie Soul. What I've been able to do is tell people when I'm in that state, that is almost exactly what I go through. If you haven't seen that movie Soul, go ahead and check it out. It's a cute little movie. I think it's got a really good message, but there is part of it where there's almost like these big shadow beings just yelling at this soul. And that's pretty much what I go through when those times happen, when I'm not in my right mind, when I'm not in my prefrontal cortex, when the chemicals have shifted to my animal brain, which can happen when you're going on and off medication, okay? So that's one of the things that you can tell your caretakers around you, to just pay attention to how you are behaving, not just physically, but also mentally, especially when you're going to be doing a medication shift, when you're going to be stopping chemotherapy, starting chemotherapy, when you're going to be stopping a medication for a while and going back on. That's another thing. You really need to, when you're in a good spot, have your caretakers around you, have your team around you. So yesterday I was experiencing what I call a chemical shift. I can actually tell myself I'm not in my right mind. I was getting to a place where I think I drove to the woods and I just wanted to lay down and go to sleep, and I was at least cognizant enough to look around to see where I was, so that if I needed to call somebody, my care team, they could come find me. The other thing that you might want to consider is making sure your care team has your location on your phone, so that if somehow your chemicals shift or whatever and you might end up somewhere, they can find you very easily. Again, this doesn't happen to me very often, but it does happen once in a while. So what you really want to do is you want to stop and you want to think about what is important to you, your top 3 to 5 priorities, okay? One of them should be your physical, mental, emotional health. The second thing you want to do is you want to plan a route, right? And you want to make sure that route is slow to go fast. So you choose your top 3 to 5 priorities, and then you choose your top 3 to 5 habits. First in the morning, that might support your priorities. But again, some of the habits don't even have to be related to your priorities. So scooping the cat litter every day, that's not necessarily that's gonna lift up my mental mood. But I can tell you, if you do it every day, especially on the days when you're having good days, okay, and you kind of whistle while you work, then on the bad days, you can at least coach yourself and say, this is what I do every day. This is what I do every day. And as a teacher, I can also tell you that, when 9/11 and things like that happened, I wondered why we were just carrying on like normal. You need both. You need a balance, okay? You need to make that time where you're taking care of your physical, your mental, and your emotional health. But at the same time, you need balance. Carrying on and doing the same thing actually does help you get through those days that are physically challenging, mentally challenging, and emotionally challenging. So stop. Make sure you know what your top 3 to 5 priorities are, and then go slow. Create some habits around those priorities that you do every single day. I had 2 different options when my chemicals were switched into my animal brain, because if you do those habits every day, you're ingraining them not just in your prefrontal cortex, but all the way down into your animal brain, so that when your chemicals shift to a place where you're not thinking logically, you still have access to what you're supposed to do during those times. So the 2 things that I could have done during that time was call my support system, which I was very close to doing, but then it also clicked in me, do your habits. Because a lot of times what I find is when I do my habits, as long as I start doing them, I kind of snap out of it. And I start lifting up my spirits again and bringing things back into my prefrontal cortex. So those are 2 options. So option number 1, we're going to stop. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stop. We're going to figure out what is our priorities. Choose your top 3 to 5 things. And then you're going to go slow, and you are going to build 3 to 5 habits that you do every day. And especially when you are in a better place. And you're going to ingrain those so far back that they're just stuck into your animal brain, so that if you are having a bad day, physically, mentally, emotionally, they're so ingrained in you that this is just what you do every day. And you will find that if you start doing those habits, more often than not, you can snap out of it, because you at least feel good that you're getting up and you're getting moving and you're actually doing something. Also, during the times that you're upbeat, you're going to set that circle of support around you, so that if you can either tell yourself or you can't tell yourself, they can see how you're doing and come in and help support you as well. I hope that this has helped someone today, so that you can use your own tips and strategies to first help yourself and then help those around you, because now more than ever, the world needs that, and it needs you. Peace and blessings.